Today we have with us a special guest who's going to be
And
speaking with us in the group. I think Miss Leslie is with us, and she'll introduce him.
Yes, so hi everyone, this is Leslie Ware, and today we have Kevin Markel, and Kevin is a statewide transition specialist, and he's going to share with us a little bit about his job, his life, what he does, what transition means, and how we're going forward during our current COVID-19 times and all this craziness in the world. But I guess without further ado, Kevin, I will turn it over to you.
Leslie, do you know which number is his so we can unmute it? Which one is it?
I'm not sure which number it is. It might be is it
Kevin,
9?
you can raise your hand. If you're on a computer, you can do Alt-Y to raise your hand to let us know which of your number.
okay, I think that unmuted me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I had to hit *6. So, but good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Markel, as Leslie said. And, I met Leslie, and I had the chance to work with her when we were with DARS, DBS back in the day, and certainly have enjoyed working with her over the years, and also working with the Lighthouse in Fort Worth over the years as well, primarily as a counselor when I started with the agency. I have been with DARS, Blind Services, and now Texas Workforce Commission VR Division for about 16 years. And when I started as a counselor, I worked really closely there with Wayne Pound on a summer work program that we had for students. And we had a handful of students each summer that, were looking for some initial work experience. Many of them had never had the opportunity to branch out and participate in any type of paid work experience or any type of real world type of work environment. And so it was a very crucial step for many of those kiddos that we worked with back in those days. So certainly have enjoyed the relationship over the years. Just a little bit about myself. I have Stargardt's disease in terms of my visual impairment. So some of you may be familiar with that disorder. Some of you may not. Stargardt's is a form of macular degeneration. So it's a particular form that affects juveniles. So I was diagnosed as a teenager when I was about 14. And so, kind of started to lose vision late in junior high school and then throughout my high school years. So when I look at that experience personally, and then I look at, the opportunity that I've had over the past 16 years, it's been a very rewarding experience, because my whole 16 years with Division for Blind Services and now with TWC has been around working with and working for students with disabilities in the state. Most of that time with students with blind visual impairment, but now it's more of a general role that I play in terms of helping with policy and training of our staff for all students with disabilities that we work with here in Texas. So we have a team of 7 people, and so I'm included within that team, that works on a variety of projects, works on a variety of initiatives, specifically for high school and college-age students. You all may be familiar with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which has been with us in law for almost 6 years, but really about 5 years of implementation that we've had at TWC with it. And with that new legislation from the federal government, it placed a whole lot of additional emphasis on students with disabilities. And with the recognition that if we can provide quality vocational, introductory vocational rehab services, especially what they call pre-employment transition services, then the hope is that the likelihood of those transitions from school to post-school life for students will be more successful and will be with a greater degree of facilitation. So it's really been a big push, like I said, over the past 5 years, and VR agencies have to dedicate about 15% of their federal funding towards these endeavors and towards these initiatives. So that's why we've had such an emphasis, and we've built such a fairly large team to address the issue and to help with the issue. We've also been able to add a number of transition VR counselors across the state as well. So that number has increased over the past several years. Even for those who serve blind, visually impaired, we still have as you all know, we still have those specialized caseloads within TWC, and so even those numbers we've seen have been able to increase for those specifically that serve students. So that kind of gives you a big picture or a big overview of what I primarily do. And again, it's primarily around policy, it's primarily around initiatives, and it's primarily around training for our staff that directly deal with best practices for working with students with disabilities. So I know one of the things that is a little bit different for us is it's different for everybody, not just across this state, but across the country and really around the world with respect to the COVID situation, is that many of our programs and services have shifted or have been put on hold or have had to be canceled for this summer. As you can imagine, we have a lot of programs for students, especially in the summer. That's an opportune time to work with the kiddos. And I know even the Lighthouse has a summer camp that they've done each year. And so we've seen, unfortunately, many of our programs, we've seen them be canceled or some of the programs have been changed slightly. Some of you may be familiar with a program we have over the last few years called Summer Earn and Learn, SEAL, as its acronyms of SEAL that's become pretty commonplace within our agency and within the vernacular of students and schools, et cetera. And it's a very big program. It serves typically more than 2,500 students, and it's about $10 million of funding that goes into that program each summer. And we work with all the local workforce boards across the state, work with a number of vendors to provide job coaching and assistance, and it also works with a great number of employers across the state as well. So unfortunately, we had to suspend summer earn and learn for this summer due to the social distancing concerns and due to the uncertainties. It takes a great deal of time and preparation to ramp up a program like that, and so the decision was made, I believe, in late March to go ahead and not plan for it this year. It would have been a really risky proposition had we continued the planning and then, would have had to pull the plug later. So we have had a few of our programs that have moved to a virtual format. Here locally, or up in Denton, we have a couple of partnerships that we do with the University of North Texas. They do 2 summer programs, one called Live and Learn, which is kind of a work readiness type of 2-week independent living skills training on campus at UNT. And then they also do what they call a College Wise program, which is kind of a college prep type of program. And both of those residential on-campus programs had to be canceled, but UNT was able to develop and adapt kind of both of those programs into a 6-module virtual online type of format for students that are interested this summer. So we've seen that type of dynamic happen for us this summer with several programs. Most of our programs, unfortunately, have been closed or possibly postponed to late summer if things get a little bit better over the next couple of months. But we have had a few programs that have been modified, like what UNT has done. Texas A&M's working on a similar type of modification on a couple of their programs for us. So we're forced with, unfortunately, not having a great number of programs available for students this summer just because of the COVID situation primarily. So, hopefully this situation gets behind us over the next year, and we can return to some type of normalcy next summer. That certainly is our hope and prayer as we go forward. I think one of the things, though, that we've been able to learn through this experience, though, is some of the value of providing some services online or in a virtual type of format. Those of you that are familiar with TWC and with VR services, those typically are, almost always provided in an in-person, direct type of way. But there have been some services that have been identified that can be provided virtually as well. Not all services, but some. And so our agency has been able to adapt over the past couple of months and develop some new policies. And right now we have, permission to continue providing these virtual options through the end of August. So this is inclusive of our vendors who provide pre-employment transition services to students. So what we have found is that there have been some students that have been more likely to participate in a virtual type of format for the training, as opposed to getting together with a small group of students and participating in person. It's also helped us be able to have a larger footprint or a larger outreach, I think, in some of our rural areas where transportation may have been tough for a family to get to a more centralized location or centralized town or city. but through virtual online options, it's been a little bit easier for them to participate. So it's been a learning process for sure over the last few months, and there are, I think, a few silver linings that we've noticed. And so hopefully, especially with respect to the way that we deliver services to students, we might hopefully see some sort of hybrid option going forward in terms of providing in-person and virtual options, for certain things that we can provide. So it's kind of been an interesting learning process and learning curve for us over the past few months. We do have some programs specifically for blind, visually impaired students as well each summer that I did want to mention. Primarily, we kind of group them all in under a category called group skills trainings. In other words, it's where we bring a group of students together and provide a particular program. And so it allows us the flexibility of developing specific programs for blind and visually impaired students and providing them in a group type of situation. Unfortunately, almost all of them have had to be canceled for this summer. We have one that still has not made a final decision, and that's a kind of a work-based learning with the CVS employer, and that's here locally in Fort Worth. The program is called Daydream, and it works with students providing some upfront workplace readiness, job readiness types of soft skills and those types of things initially in the program, and then it puts them within a CVS location in their local community for a work experience in the summer. So the reason that is still an unknown is, as the last we've heard, CVS has still not made a final decision on whether or not they're going to allow any additional student volunteers later this summer. So, my guess is probably will be doubtful that will happen, but it is really the only one still outstanding that is kind of locally related to the Fort Worth area that might happen. Unlikely, but it might happen. So we'll just have to, kind of keep our fingers crossed and see. But it has definitely been a unique situation. I think it's been a difficult one, a bit sad for a lot of the students that aren't able to participate in these programs. But again, trying to look on the bright side, I think we have seen a couple of silver linings with respect to some virtual and online offerings that will probably go forward as we move forward into future years. And as we all know, most of the students that we work with are pretty adept and proficient with using smartphones or devices or with the assistive technology. So it makes that all the better. But let me take a pause there and see if there are any questions or any comments, about what I've just shared.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. So if anybody has a question and you have dialed into a telephone, you can press *9 to raise your virtual hand and you will be recognized. If you're on a computer, it's Alt-Y. That's on a desktop or laptop computer. So has anybody got a question, Rebecca?
There are currently no hands up.
I'll throw one out there. Kevin, you mentioned Wayne Pound. It's kind of funny. I grew up with Wayne. He was kind of a mentor to me. I grew up around the lighthouse. What region do you cover? Is it mostly North Texas?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in terms of my work with the agency now, it's statewide in terms of the different initiatives that I work on. When I was a counselor with the agency working directly with students, I was in the Fort Worth area. So I served Tarrant County and then counties that surround Tarrant to the west and south, like Parker and Johnson and Somerville, et cetera. So I was a counselor serving, blind visually impaired students in junior high and high school in those days. And then when I moved over into this new role, we were still at DARS, a Division for Blind Services, and it became more of a statewide role to kind of serve as a resource person for all of our transition counselors that serve students. And so it's really where my heart has always been, working with young people and students. And I think a lot of it has to do with my personal experience as a young person and a student, with a visual disability. So I've always been very content with that dynamic and that demographic in terms of my work. Now, I know it's kind of specific to students and to young people, but if anybody has a question in general about vocational rehab, about our program that even involves adults, et cetera, I can do my best to address those too, if any of those types of questions are on anyone's minds.
So you mentioned that a lot of the virtual classes has definitely become popular. We've adapted. We started adapting to that in March. Our support group used to be a once a month in-person event, and now we've been doing it weekly, having different speakers come in, and then we do other classes as well. So do you think a lot of y'all's classes are going to kind of evolve that way over the next year?
I think from our perspective, we certainly hope so. In terms of the offerings that we can provide to students, I think it just provides more versatility. I think it improves our outreach. I think it improves our footprint within the lives of students and with families. So I think there's a lot of positives that can come out of it. It's not certainly an end all in terms of a tool that can meet all the needs, but it can help, I think, in some situations. So I know as a team, that's what we will be advocating for, with our leadership going forward. So hopefully that type of flexibility will continue long term.
We have a couple of hands up. Okay, somebody calling in, the last 4 digits are 2638. And you may have to unmute on your end.
Oh, okay. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm like 61 years old. Is anything out there for me for vocational rehab?
Sure. I mean, if you're looking to go back to work, or if you're looking to, I don't know if there's any work type of now, but if there's any work participation now, but if you're looking to retain that current work or even advance in work, those are all possibilities. And I'm glad you brought up that question, because one of the unique things that has been added to what VR can do is it can assist people with disabilities who are working successfully. If they want to advance in that job, let's say they're not in danger of losing their job, or they haven't lost the job, but they want to advance in it, they can apply for VR services, and the agency can help and work towards that advancement. Maybe it would involve a graduate level degree, or maybe it would involve some additional specialized training to, move up in a company or something like that. So that's another one of those new innovations that have come out of the recent legislation that, I mentioned earlier. And, good thing to keep in mind, for those of you all that do know folks, perhaps with a disability that they may be working, but maybe they're not really happy in that particular station and would like to advance in their job, they certainly can come to us. But yeah, as a 61-year-old that might be looking to go back to work, either part-time or full-time, you can certainly, explore the options of how VR can help. And that would just start by, calling the local office. And even in current times with the COVID situation, everyone's working remotely, or about 98% are working remotely. We do anticipate some small level of staff if the governor continues to open things up, and if situation stabilizes and we can assure that health and safety is maintained, there should be small representations back within the offices, perhaps later this summer. We haven't been given any timelines, but it's all going to vary. But saying all that, I think it's important to keep in mind that just because folks are working remotely doesn't mean that you can't get services or you can't apply for services. It's available, and most everything has been adapted so that signatures can be obtained electronically, and that the things that you would typically do and meet for in person are being done by phone or by other platforms. Like, we don't use Zoom at TWC, but we use other similar types of platforms and other platforms that perhaps applicants or potential customers might be have available to use if they want to video conference or something like that. So again, with the new flexibility, it has not slowed down our ability to serve folks at all. Some of the in-person types of services may be on hold, but there's still a lot of things that we can provide virtually and online in terms of training.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, so we'll have the contact. Who would I contact? Would it be your department or who?
Well, if you want the local number in Fort Worth of course, I don't know what part of town you're in, but you could contact our office, which is in South Fort Worth. And TWC has what's called a no wrong door policy. So in other words, you could contact any office and they can connect you with the right person within Fort Worth. But if you want to take down this number, it's 817-759-3500. And again, you could just explain that you're interested in exploring possibility of services or going back to work, and then regardless if you would be served out of that office, they could still connect you with the right person, even if it's in a different part of the city.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Wendy. Go ahead,
you.
Bertha.
Hi, Kevin. I'm a TVI for Keller ISD, and I had not heard of the summer programs that you all offer. What is the age group range of the kids that you take into these different programs?
Kevin, you
Provide us a lot more. I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things that, as I mentioned about the group skills trainings earlier, that allows us to do is to make those flexible. So if we want to or need to serve younger students, we certainly can. Typically, most of our work-based learning types of programs, like Summer Earn and Learn and some of the other ones that I've mentioned, is typically 16 and up, just because of the child labor laws, are less applicable for students at that age. So it gives us a lot more flexibility.
Okay.
Some of the considerations that we have in programs like that is that we work with the local workforce boards, and there are 28 of those local boards across the state. And so, there are little bitty nuances and little bitty policies that may vary from board to board. But in general, there may be some work sites that would be off limits that the workforce board could not support, but those are pretty limited, and for safety reasons, and they all make sense. But typically those programs start at 16 and up. But again, it's not just the big one like Summer Earn and Learn. There are other programs here in the Fort Worth area and in North Texas. I mentioned Daydream Program, which is that partnership with CVS. That's operated out of here in Fort Worth, and it's not a residential program, so the students don't have to come to a central location and stay overnight or anything like that. Now, there is another similar type of program over in Dallas called Mastering the Real World. Now, that is where kids would spend a couple of weeks together. They do a contract with a local hotel, and they do vocational adjustment training during the day for the first 2 weeks, and a lot of independent living skills training. And then they embark on a 5-week work-based learning experience in their local community.
Wow.
So that's a really good one. If you've been in the area a while, that used to be called the Dream Program, and we used to partner with SMU in Dallas on that. So it's changed a little bit in terms of the venues, but the overall philosophy of the program is still the same. So those are a couple of programs to keep in mind locally in terms of summer programs. And then there are other, smaller, maybe one-day training activities, or maybe a weekend type training activity. And so the best advice I could give is just the local TWC counselors that just to stay in contact with them and ask them about what's being planned for the fall or the spring. For Keller, you would probably work with Margaret Schiffner, I would think.
I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just, Margaret would be a good one to keep in contact with in terms of staying up to date. And at this point, though, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty as to what we're going to be able to do. And I guess we'll have to see, some of what we do may depend upon what the schools decide to do in the fall as well.
That's right. And I have a specific student in mind, so it's good to know about this, because again, I didn't know about these summer programs. And back to what you were sharing with Wendy, I have received services as a working adult trying to keep up with the technology that Keller throws at us. And the services have, I'm in the middle of it right now with them. And like you said, even though we're not doing anything face-to-face, we're in the process of them completing my plan, and I guess is the best way to say it. So
sure, kind of working through those processes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you bet, Bertha.
Thanks,
Great.
Bertha. We had somebody in the chat ask a question. Liz asked, are you finding your client base has access to the internet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I can't speak so much for the adult demographics, but I can speak to the students because it's something we have taken a very close look at, and it is indeed an issue for our students. When students are in school, sometimes they may be issued a device and may have access. At home, that could vary a great deal. A family may have a single computer, whether it be desktop or laptop, or a single tablet or something like that where they could access. And of course, it's kind of a shared type of situation. Or there are instances where families don't have any device and no internet access. There are, I know, a couple of resources that we have available for counselors who find themselves in that situation. I don't remember the particulars, but we have developed a COVID resource page that we have posted internally for our counselors to access. And I know there are one or two resources that we can reach out to assist with that particular concern. So again, my experience with that over the last few months has just been with our student demographic, and I'm not so sure about the adult situation. I would imagine that you all are familiar with Computers for the Blind over in Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
That's a terrific resource too, that I'm sure has been a tremendous help for people in this situation without a device or a need to connect virtually, and they perhaps didn't have the means or to get a device.
Let's see here, Kevin. One of the challenges has been, especially for the assistive technology side of things, is we can't provide any training in person, and of course we're still in the process of developing our evaluation center. But I wonder if possibly in the future, workforce or whatever would consider allowing us to do training virtually.
Yeah, and that would be a good question for our standards team. When I say standards team, those are the ones that make the policy decisions for all the contracted services, including assistive technology. As I mentioned earlier, there have been some, because our standards team, they reviewed really all of the contracted services and made decisions back in March and April on which ones they felt confident about could be provided virtually, and those that could not. So, another one that can't really be provided virtually is something like supported employment. That's really kind of an in-person kind of joint type of thing. So, there are just some services that don't lend itself to that. But I think there would be, some aspects of assistive technology that possibly could. But, I would defer to, just follow up on the contract with TWC. I have no idea if they're looking at that, for AT or not.
Understandable. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm muted. All right, I'm here. Sorry, I was muted, then I wasn't muted, and now I'm not unmuted. So, yeah, I had a question, Kevin.
Uh-huh.
You know, if you think about all the skills that somebody who's visually impaired learns to become an independent person, uh, if you had to rank, like, what skill or skill do you think are the most important to help somebody transition to the workplace, for example?
Well, I know there's a myriad of them available, and that we could talk about and address. But without question, I think in my work as a counselor with students, and in my work as someone who helps to develop policy and best practices and how to work with students, and from that perspective, those interpersonal soft type of skills, there's just no substitute for the need to develop and foster and encourage and promote those types of skills. There's that old adage about, those hard skills can get you the job, but the soft skills will help you keep the job. And within those soft skills, I think what we see the most often, where we're, and I'm speaking from the perspective of working with students, where we see students, have difficulty or perhaps fail at a work-based learning experience, it almost always goes back to not being able to handle appropriate interpersonal relationships, whether that be, how they converse with others, or how they converse with a supervisor, or sometimes it gets into behaviors on the work site, but I would say that's not the largest problem we see. And a lot of these we can teach, and a lot of these we can promote, but unfortunately we have a lot of students that are in very difficult home situations where it may not be reinforced at home. And I think that's where a lot of those students are at such a disadvantage, not having those types of skills and reinforced, within the home. And so I'm kind of speaking from that perspective. But those interpersonal communication types of skills, whether in writing or verbally, or just the overall approach for interaction between coworkers and everything, is what we see the most challenge in, and what we try to address the most. And I'm sure you all see that quite a bit too, with the work you do that at the Lighthouse.
Certainly. Actually, we have a camp every year in the summer. Granted, this summer will be an exception, but we have a camp we do called Camp Carter, and it's not uncommon for many transition students to become involved with that program. And the long and short of that is, it was at Camp Carter over there at the YMCA here in Fort Worth, and for about a week they have a camp there with kids. Ages kind of vary. I think sometimes we've done ages between 13 to 18 years of age. And what's nice about it is it's very integrated. So it's not just a camp for kids who are visually impaired or blind exclusively. It's a camp. There are kids of all varieties, kids who are sighted, and then of course, young adults who are visually impaired or blind, and they do what the other campers do. They horseback ride, they go swimming, they have other activities throughout the day where they are able to interact, and they have that integrated experience. And I think we've really enjoyed, Sean and I and others have really enjoyed being able to provide that. In fact, there's even a technology component to that, right, Sean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with the camp. It's been several years since I've been out there, but I know y'all have had it up for a number of years, and I think there was some, like you said, a technology component, an iPad component,
Yes.
or something to that effect, with it, which is terrific. And one of the wonderful things that I observed as a counselor who used to coordinate activities and camps like that, and now I kind of still do that as well, but a little from a different perspective now. But one of the things that we have certainly found is that the time that students have together in that type of setting, in that type of training scenario, and really that the type of relationships that can be developed and fostered, even peer-to-peer, or with a counselor, or et cetera, it just is able to grow exponentially over the course of a week. What might take a year or more to accomplish in terms of a relationship with a student, or in some of those skills with a student, can be accomplished in a much shorter time and a much more meaningful period of time for students. And so I'm really glad that you all have continued that program.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's one of the highlights of our year at the Lighthouse. Happy to do that. Hopefully, we'll be able to continue to do that at some point, maybe in the next year, next summer.
Mm-hmm.
If all things go well. Any other questions out there? Questions or comments or thoughts? I think I saw some questions in the chat earlier.
Yes. Dina asked if TWC helps with training and acquiring devices, and does a company or individual have to contract with TWC to provide these services?
Well, y'all might be able to address that a lot better than I can. I know that we do assist a great deal with assistive technology in both of our programs. And when I say both, I mean our independent living program, in addition to our VR program. I know a great deal of technology is purchased and evaluated and trained upon, and I do know that those are all contract-related types of services. So if an individual is interested in doing that, they would need to pursue that route. But sure, probably Sean or somebody else could probably address that better than I could.
Yeah, so definitely under the OIB program, I know older individuals who are blind, counselors can buy CCTVs and equipment along those lines. And then the vocational program, depending on what your goals are and what your vocational goal, whether you're going to college or going back to work, that would include assistive technology evaluations and assistive technology training. So those are all contract services that the state provides according to the goals of the customer.
Are there any other chats out there? Any other questions, Rebecca, in the chat?
No.
Okay.
Let me tag on one other thing too.
Sure.
Something that's related to assistive technology that's, I think, important for our work with blind, visually impaired students and deaf students, or other students who might need rehabilitation technology. one of the flexibilities that we have is that the agency has the latitude to purchase those types of things for individuals who would need them, not just to go to work or to go to post-secondary training or something like that, but also to participate in those pre-employment transition services that I alluded to earlier, which is such a focus for our students. So if we have, particular trainings, or let's take Summer Earn and Learn for an example. If we have kiddos that, want to participate in that, but they need some software or they need some other type of rehab technology to participate, we have the flexibility of purchasing those types of things as well, so that the student can participate. So it allows us more latitude aside from just what may be related to the ultimate vocational goal or the ultimate post-secondary program goal. So we're excited about that as well. That's a recent flexibility that the feds have given us. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kevin Markel, we did a pre-ETS class here at the Lighthouse last summer.
Uh-huh.
It's our Believe program, and I just think, who knows, maybe in the future that definitely could be a virtual type program, I would think.
Sure, and if you all are interested in converting that to virtual, it's really pretty simple and straightforward to do. We have, you'll just work with the local counselor, whether it be Margaret or Tambra, or let's see, we have a third one in Fort Worth now that's relatively new. I want to say her name is Connie. I've only spoken with her a couple of times, but she's relatively new. But anyway, you would just work with one of the counselors, and they would complete that form, and then we would approve your curriculum for virtual format, and it's just that simple. And then you get students to participate. So if you all are interested, just let me know how I can help.
Yeah, we'd be happy to have that conversation. Certainly at some point, for sure. All right, guys. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Kevin? Mr. Markel. If I say Mr. Kevin, it's like I'm talking in a third person. Because my name is Kevin.
Hey, it's a good name to have, for sure.
It is. I'm a little biased, but I like it.
I am too. No, but I appreciate the invite this morning, and if other questions or concerns come up, or sometimes you attend a meeting or something, and something hits you later in the day. You all have my contact information. Just let me know, and I'd be happy to track down any answers or any queries. So just let me know.
Kevin, next time you're out and about or available, we would love to have you come check out our evaluation center that's in the works. We started this journey last October when we got the contract, and then we built the room. We're actually, all four of us, me, Alex, Kevin, and Rebecca, are in our evaluation center. That's our makeshift broadcast center. But we got all the equipment in March and April. To my left, I have about 8 cubicles full of CCTVs and handheld magnifiers, and we got everything you can imagine in here. We'd love for you to come out and check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely will. I would imagine once the office is open back up, I guess y'all will invite the counselors up.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we're
most
gonna have a
definitely.
big
From the
open
area.
house for sure. But
Yeah, so I'll try to tag along. Yeah, for sure. I would love to see that. Whereabouts did you all build a new part of the facility to house that, or is it one of the
Yeah.
existing?
No, we
rooms?
so we built. It's kind of funny because the room we're in, where we're sitting now, used to be warehouse space, and now it's it's an individual room. It's probably, I want to say it's like the size of 3 2-car garages. It's huge. It's
Yeah.
like a big area
Great.
back there.
Okay.
All
It's all
enclosed.
air conditioner enclosed. It's nice. We're really proud of it. Oh.
Hey, before we end, there was
Very-
another question came up in the chat.
Indeed.
Mindy asked, if
Okay.
someone currently has an employment plan already, but is currently on standby due to everything going on and may take longer than expected, what would work in the meantime look like? Could she get help with that, and would it affect her career goal?
Yeah, what you might do is follow up with your counselor. One of the things that we're able to do to help customers, who are kind of in that process of moving back towards, full-time employment, is we can offer work-based learning opportunities, including for adults. We have a fairly new contract available through WorkQuest. WorkQuest is the new name for the old Texas Industries for the Blind and Handicapped. And so we have a brand new, well, not brand new, but as of the last fall, a new contract with WorkQuest to provide wage services. So in other words, if a counselor and a customer are kind of in that holding pattern, and nothing has opened up in terms of prospects for permanent employment, if they can identify an area with another employer or another type of work, they can partner with an employer or an organization or something like that, and an individual can get that experience, plus they can get the wage services through WorkQuest that we can purchase as well. So, I mean, that might be, it's kind of like a volunteer experience that you might get in the field that you're interested in, but you could earn wages from it as well. So that's a relatively new type of program that we, or type of service that we have that might be worth exploring with your counselor to see if, one of those types of experiences might work in the interim.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, Kevin, we really appreciate you coming out and speaking to our group today. And
oh, you bet. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to you coming here as well when once we're all up and running and have our open house.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for talking to us. This is really important topic, and it's interesting to hear how we're going to move forward with helping our transition age kids, so
yeah,
uncharted waters, right?
Uncharted waters, but good waters too, because if we can help these young people change their trajectory at a younger age, it will save us a lot of effort and issues when they later in life. So,
absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job. We just really grateful for you. Keep up the good work.
Okay, likewise. Y'all keep up the good work too, and look forward to seeing the new AT Center.